they're like the poster team, if you will, for analytics. All right, that's the whole thing with the 3-point shooting. And for those, I mean, it's simple math. It's amazing, Rob, that if for the first, I don't know, 25, 30 years of the 3-point line, nobody really thought about this. But 3 is better than 2. And if you're not going to shoot the same percentage from 3-point land as you shoot from 2, but, Rob, you don't have to. That's the whole thing behind the analytics craze. And you know this, Rob, coming up, I mean, if you shoot 50% from the field, that's great. Well, if you shoot 33% from 3-point land, which isn't even league average now, that's the equivalent of 50% from 2-point range. So that's why the 3-point revolution took place and why it's such a big part of the game now. And now what the analytics tell you, the percentage of, chances you make certain shots, Rob, the ultra analytic teams only want to shoot in the paint or 3-pointers. And D'Antoni may have been the first to kind of start this, but they don't want to shoot mid-range shots, particularly the long, the 20-footers, the 19-footers, because the chance of you hitting those are only slightly better than if you hit a 3. So they're like, well, why don't you move out a couple of feet and get 3 points instead of 2? So that's what the analytics teams do. 3-pointers, shots in the paint, and free throws. That is what they do. And Rob G got some numbers. That's what Boston is kind of doing to a T. Is that correct?
That is correct. They're doing exactly what they've done throughout the regular season. Now, last night was the pinnacle of that, though, because during this series, they're averaging about half of their shots are 3-point attempts, a little more than half, actually. Last night, 46 of their 82 attempts were from deep. And to your point about where they're getting their shots, mention the 3-point shooting. They scored 106 points in Game 3. 100 of them came from either the 3-point line, inside the paint, or at the free throw line.
100 of their 106 points came in those 3 ways.
Absolutely. And
Wow.
it's interesting because they only made 3 mid-range. They attempted 6. 3 of 6 from mid-range. One of the mid-range shots they made was what many would call the biggest shot of the game. That was a Jaylen Brown 20-footer with about a minute left in the game.
Yep. Yeah, it was a huge shot. It wasn't the game winner technically, if you just look at the points, was the dunk, I believe by Tatum in the lane, which was a nice dunk. But yeah, to me, the big shot was Tatum or Brown's 21-footer. That to me was like, okay, it's over. That kind of sealed it. Well, look, during the regular season, Boston averaged 90 shots a game, and 42 of them were threes. So it wasn't quite 50%, but it was close. I wouldn't be surprised if next year it is 50%. And, that's kind of the way the league, obviously, it just gets more. The threes get higher and higher every year. And so, we'll see. I mean, during the playoffs, I think they've gotten even more of that. 83.8 shots a game for the Celtics. 40.2 of them are threes. So that's a higher percentage of their shots are threes. So, yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if next year is 50% of their shots are threes.
Yeah, but the only thing is, and I get the analytics, and Chris, it still comes down to talent and roster. Because what was the game, Rob G? Was it game 2 they shot 10 for 39? Do you remember the?
Well, they haven't shot the 3 well this whole series.
That's what I mean.
33%.
It's not just the analytics and shooting. They have a better roster, have better players.
But they got a roster built to play analytic style basketball.
I get that. But
that really is what it is.
But it's not like they're killing the analytics game of making the threes is what I'm saying to you.
But analytics is also the points in the paint. Not many.
I get
cut
that,
down
but the
mid-range.
threes are big. They take a lot of threes, and I'm just saying that they've won, Chris, in spite of not making them. That's all I'm saying is like that's not the only way that you can win is by knocking down that many threes, and they've still been able to win. That's all. I'm not saying you go away from analytics all the way, but there are more ways to win than just that. You can go if you want to hold them up as the poster boy for analytics. That's fine. I heard people say that with the Red Sox. I remember when they won, and I was like, I get it. They use some analytics, but some guys got some big hits too. Stuff. That's what I mean, right? That's all.
But their roster's built to play analytic style basketball, right? We talked about Carey and Antonio Daniels talked about it. They got 8 guys. Their 8-man rotation, all of them can shoot threes. That's an analytically built team, and they don't take a ton of mid-range shots, and they're not the only ones. But yeah, I mean, this is what they are doing.
Is it system or is it system, Chris, or is it talent? Like I get what you're saying completely.
Well, but it's both.
That's what I'm saying.
Everything is a mix. I mean, you got to have guys that can play, but these guys, they do have a bunch of 3-point shooters for their style of play, and that was one of the reasons I thought maybe when they do go cold, it could come back to bite them. But like you said, this series they've gone cold. Now the Dallas is cold too. That's part of it. But that their defense is even built analytically in that they take away the corner 3, and that's the easiest 3-point shot in the league and one of the easier shots in the league, and so they've taken that away, and that's been a huge part of Dallas's success throughout these playoffs. And so that is, it's all analytically based, and Missoula is huge on that, obviously. And this, because they obviously all the teams incorporate analytics, but when under Udoka, they weren't this heavily analytic, and Missoula came in and just completely made them. And I don't think it was only him. I'm sure Brad Stevens has something to do with it as well. But yeah, they're playing this way. What I wonder, Rob, is there a threshold of when the game becomes too 3-point heavy? Like, is there I don't know what it is. And then maybe there isn't one. But if I don't know what, 60% of the shots become threes, does it become something we don't recognize anymore? Like the All-Star game. That's my firm belief.
Yeah, that was as bad as it gets.
That is what ruined the All-Star game. Yeah. That I remember I think it was 2014 or 15.
Yeah, I remember that. Yeah.
When they went from about 80 combined threes to like 108 or something.
I was going to say 300 because that's what it felt like.
Well, once it went over 100, it was just like, okay, it's not even a game anymore. But it's going to be interesting because, Rob, it's a copycat league. And so it'll be, you wonder next year, are the 3-pointers going to skyrocket because the team that shot the most this year won the championship.
Yep. And I just wonder. I wonder, people, Chris, and I think you just said it, you do have to have the personnel. Just in putting in the system and wanting to do something, if you don't make those shots and you don't, you know what I mean? Then you got to have the people to perform it, the people to pull it off. Just like we talked about before, it's just a little different. But when Pat Riley went to the Knicks, he didn't bring Showtime with him to New York, right? He didn't have the personnel.
Right.
You just can't go, well, this is my system and this is what we do, and we're going to run up and down, and the point guard is going to be doing all these no-look passes and dunks and all. No, you didn't have those players.
No, and that was impressive.
It really was.
He completely changed. It was very impressive. No, I agree with you, right? And I think what Boston, what they would say, and I'm sure what they will do, they're going to go out and get players that fit that system. And look, for them, I mean, they're going to lock up, I think Tatum will get an extension this summer. So he and Brown will be they're the core.
So what will Tatum get, $80 million?
Well, he's going to get the over 300. He will now become the highest paid guy in the league. It was Jaylen Brown. You knew, that would only last for this cycle, right? But they'll get players that fit that. And I think next year they'll essentially be intact. And then how will they be able to keep these guys or retool going forward? But, Rob, this is, we talk about will they be an all-time great team. For me, they're going to have to win another one. Like in the next, they have to win one of the next two and maybe become like a mini dynasty or something like that for me to think they're an all-time great team. I'll give you an example. Nick Wright said this on our show, First Things First, today, and it made sense. And I think you'll understand it too. That Pistons team, we talk about a lot, 04, and we've compared this team to that one because, no superstar, but a bunch of stars. And, Rob, some people say should have beaten San Antonio the following year.
Well, right.
When Rasheed left. Was it was it Ori?
Robert Ori open,
yeah,
right.
Ori of all people.
He went to double Ginobili in the corner, Chris. I was sitting right over there. It was unbelievable. Yeah. And then Robert Ori caught it.
Didn't they tell him in the huddle?
That was the big thing. And I remember talking to Larry Brown. He said that kid is torn up, talking about Rasheed, because they told her, do not, under any circumstance, leave Robert Ori. Do not leave him. And they had a chance to win that game. I don't know if you remember what happened at the end. After that, Rip had a shot. He had a shot at the end. They had a chance to win that, and they might have won the championship had they won that game, because you remember they were down 0-2, came back to Detroit, won Game 3, won Game 4, and then they lost that game. And then they won Game 6 in San Antonio. To push it to 7.
I think they would have won had that.
Robert Ori didn't make that shot. I agree.
But my point is this, Rob. Had they won that series and now they're back-to-back champions, and you remember they got back to the conference finals several years after that, they would have been viewed, we would have held them in even higher esteem. You know what I'm saying? Like, they're not viewed as one of the all-time great teams.
No. But
had they obviously beat Shaq and Kobe. Had they also beaten Duncan, you know what I mean? We may have looked at them that way. And that's what I'm saying about these Celtics. Like, this one championship's not going to do it. I don't care. They were wildly impressive. It's been a great year. But just one is not going to do it. And that's what I'm like. Denver, Rob, if Denver won this year, we'd probably be saying they're like maybe one of the greatest teams, you know what I mean, of all time or something like that.
Yeah, no, you got to do more. And for the Pistons, the only thing that saved them, Chris, was that they got back to the finals. So they So it wasn't a fluke
that gave
year.
Them more
you know what I mean?
credibility.
Like it wasn't just a fluke year. Everything worked their way. They made it back to the finals, and they lost in 7 games. So people feel good about that team. But you're right, and the way you look at teams.
Yeah, no doubt about it.